Hello everyone, welcome to my course lesson Understanding Public and Private Fields in JavaScript class. In this course lesson, we are going to understand and learn how to add some privacy to the JavaScript class. Now let's explore that in this course lesson. Now, some things should be left private. That's not instead of when using classes in JavaScript. But in recent times, proposals have come up to add some privacy to the JavaScript class. We will explore that in this post. Now, in other languages like Java and C++, they have access to modifiers like private, public, and protected. All these control access to a class variables and methods. According to the author of the book, Java How to Program, it says, the primary purpose of public methods is to present to the class clients a view of the services the class provides. That is the class public interface. Clients of the class need not be concerned with how the class accomplishes its tasks. For this reason, the private variables and private methods of a class, that is the class implementation details, are not directly accessible to the class's clients. Now we have the time class. This time class is used to display the current time. Now look at it, has three variables, hour, minutes, and second. Each of these hold the current value of the seconds, minutes, and hour. Now, naturally, we can't allow users to modify the hour, minutes, and second variable. So that's the reason we made them private. Trying to directly modify the variables outside the scope of the class will throw an error. You see, the variables with the private access modifier can only be modified from inside the class, not outside the class as we did. See, we added a method set hour to 0 and we accessed the private hour member variable and assigned it to 0. So you see, this works because the hour member variable is being accessed inside the scope of the class time. So this works. Even methods are applicable also. If we set a method to private, it can only be called from inside the class, not outside the class. Now, see, we have this method, format time, and it's a private method. So it can only be accessed inside the class time. We cannot access it outside the scope of this class. Now look at now, we are trying to access it and it throws format time has private access in time. Error, method format time has private access in time. So we see that JavaScript has privacy, which enables us to know delicate methods and variables we want to expose or to hide from the outside world. Now we have the class time in JavaScript with all the methods and properties. Now here, all the methods and properties are all public, so they can be accessible outside the scope of this class time. See here, we have the hour, minute, and second variables. They are all accessible outside the scope of the class time, and also it can be changed. Now in JavaScript, all the properties and methods there are all public. Recently, JavaScript has given us a way in which we can privatize class properties and methods. This is done by appending hash before the name of the class property or method. This is how it's done. Now let's make three of these properties to be private. Simple. We start by the hash symbol, then the property name. Now for minutes, we start by the hash symbol followed by the property name. Now for second, we start by the hash symbol followed by the property name. Second. Now we have to change all the occurrences of hour, minute, second in our code. Now here we can now access them like this. So you see, with this, hour is no longer accessible outside the class. It is only accessible inside this class time. So let's try to access this hour. You will see it will throw error. See here, to throw error. Already we are seeing error here in our VS Code. Say property hashtag hour is not accessible outside class time because it has a private identifier. So using this hash symbol makes that variable or class property to be a private variable. Now let's run it. Node test. So you see it says private field hour must be declared in an enclosing class. Now this is a way in which we can make our class property to be private. Also, we can make this build string to be a private property. So we add the hash symbol there, and then try to call it time dot hashtag build string. Let's call it like this. So already JavaScript is our VS Code is giving us an error that the property is not accessible, that it's a private identifier. So if we try to run it also, it will throw us an error also. So you see, it must be declared. So as we can see, the private identifiers like second, build string, and all can only be accessed inside. Now let's have a method like this: get our second. Now we can only access these private variables inside the class time. So we want to access it here and return just the hour and the second. So we can do it like this: return, and we can now say hour and access it. This with the hashtag hour, then the second, this dot hashtag. And now this gets our second is now is a public method, so we can call it outside of the class time. So now let's call it. So and now let's run it in our console. Sorry, we need to log it. So you see, it returned the hour and the second. So we're able to access the private method hour and minute inside the class time, but not outside the class. It will throw. So accessing it inside here, we successfully returned it. JavaScript uses the hash notation to denote a private symbol because it is illogical, since in JavaScript property names may either start with an underscore or a letter. So trying to access a class property starting with a hash notation will throw a syntax error.